And hello to all the fantastic listeners out there and followers. We're doing some writing, we're doing some editing, we're doing Dangers of Boredom, Chapter 7, which is going to be really interesting. I'm looking forward to it. So let's get going. Unfortunately, I didn't get paid enough to listen to people's problems. When you get paid, it gets boring. But lately, everything was boring. I stood watching the other detainees go about their day. A long-haired large man made eye contact with me as he slowly pissed his pants. Over the many months, I'd become desensitized to even the funniest of antics. Even the funniest antics. Let's take out of there. Much better. Stronger sentence structure. Guys, good job. Pissed his pants. Over the many months, I'd become desensitized to even the funniest antics. After a while, let's turn that into 2 words. One crazy guy who should be heavily medicated in mental hospital is just like the last. Finding a book to enjoy reading was becoming harder and harder. According to a CO, a urine-soaked towel was thrown into the book box, ruining our books. The new book box was full of novels donated by a community organization. Clearly, the community didn't realize a jail would be full of adult men. The majority of the box's books were sappy romance novels or children's books about lost puppies. A few co-conspirators, let's turn that into one word, thank you. Co-conspirators, yeah. And I set to slowly destroying and throwing away the books in hopes of them being replaced by literary delights. With a terrible book and a mundane existence, my 21 hours in my cell were suffocating. Maximum security was supposed to keep violent inmates away from the rest of the population, or protect inmates in danger. Let's put a comma there. Yep, comma is the right placement right there. But this institution seemed to use it to punish those charged with specific crimes. After over half a year with 21 hours in a cell, and few choices in way of distractions, I began feeling a twinge insane. A twinge or a tad? Which is correct? A twinge or a tad? I'm gonna keep a twinge for now. With boredom seeping in, aiding the cream walls closing in on me, I had to find some new distractions. Moving hands are unhurting hands. Searching through my things for something to do, I stumbled upon the old playing cards my first schizophrenic celly bent both directions. They were no good to play with. That's when an idea hit me. I picked up a pen and cards and began to write. If the Jews have all the money, how do the whites have all the power? 9 no's and a yes is still a yes. Never rub another man's rhubarb. And always pee after sex were just a few golden tidbits of advice that went down on the cards. Every card was different. On my time out early in the morning, while all we snuggled soundly in their beds. On my time out early in the morning, while others were snuggled soundly in their beds, I, Jailhouse Santa, went to work. Everyone woke up to a card or two under their doors. The talk of the cards and the gold nuggets of wisdom on them filled the day. By the second day of card distribution, they'd figured out I was Santa. The cards were enjoyed, laughed at, discussed in detail, and even displayed in a few house windows. Unfortunately, by the 3rd day, I was out of cards and extreme boredom was back on. Maybe now was a good time to experiment with drugs. I knew the guy in 21 house brought in a bunch of drugs. I said hello, and for a ton of coffee, I got my heroin. He called it brown. Unfortunately, these drugs had been in his ass, a fact which became evident as soon as they were within 3 feet of my nose. No longer able to contemplate doing brown, I decided to go back to snorting good old sleeping meds, getting high, and passing out. I knew a Mexican in Brazil who were known for cheeking his meds. I knew a Mexican from Brazil who was known for cheeking his meds. I bought a few of those and enjoyed myself. Let's turn those into one paragraph. But after a while, I realized how expensive drugs were and how lazy I felt sleeping the day away. I could always go back to drugs if I couldn't find anything better. They are incredibly easy to get in jail. Fuck you, you lying-ass bitch. Finally, some entertainment. It was a heroin junkie who didn't mind his drugs smelling like ass. He was on the phone having a loud conversation with his girlfriend, who he called his wife. I quickly grabbed paper and pencil and recorded the show. You are a liar. You cheated on me. You stupid, good-for-nothing slut. You're a whore, a whore, a whore. A moment of silence followed every few outbursts. While the entire pod waited, he continually gave louder responses to his wife's infidelity. Moments of silence followed every few outbursts, while the entire pod awaited his continually louder responses to his wife's infidelity. There we go. That's a sentence. That's a sentence worth talking about. You keep lying. You know how much I hate when you lie. Why do you do that to me? You're hurting me, bitch. You're hurting us, you cunt. Silence. Hang on. Close that. There we go. Now we're talking. Now we're cooking with Crisco. Move that around. Let's turn this into a nice, much bigger. There we go. No, because I know you. You sucked his dick. I know you sucked his dick, you fucking stupid bitch. I wonder if you can get domestic violence charges from a phone call. This phone call would definitely qualify as violent, and all phone calls were recorded. Why don't you just go kill yourself, you stupid... And with a slam, he hung up the phone before sliding down to the ground, bursting into loud wailing. For a moment, there was only the sound of his sobs, before applause and shouts filled the pod. Wah, wah! Will she suck mine too? Does she eat? Cry, baby, cry! All followed by spurts of laughter while his tears continued to fall. Poor guy. What a... People are mean, but... that's the way the story goes. And when you're talking about jail and you're talking about people living in jail in closed custody, that's the reality of the situation. It's just what's going to happen. Next day, the crazy codependent couple were back together. Next day, the crazy codependent couple was back together. They'd go back to fighting about her having sexual intercourse with other guys every few days. The pod always enjoyed the entertainment and making fun of the idiot. With the show over, I turned back to my cell. The problem with exciting, crazy, or funny things that happened in the pod was they were all short-lived. The problem with exciting, crazy, or funny things that happened in the pod was they were short-lived. Most days, I'd say we got 10 minutes of excitement for every 24 hours. 10 minutes. I'd say we got 10 minutes of excitement for every 24 hours. Maybe I could get that number. Maybe I could up that number. I bet a race war would be fun, not to join but to watch. There weren't enough people out at once to have a good one, but maybe I could pit a black guy against a Mexican from Cuba. I knew that the Mexican's ex was named Gina, and that black guy was super homophobic. He got uncomfortable anytime He got uncomfortable anytime I called him a big black stallion. Using this information, I came up with the story that Gina broke up with him after walking in on a guy pounding Mexican's ass. When asked why, his reply was that he did 6 years in a California prison, so of course he liked it in the ass. Becoming a true rumor weed, I told my tale near and far. Soon everyone knew the story, including our favorite homophobic black guy. The next day, the COs did a random search of their house and took Mexican away to the hole for drugs. When Homophobe was asked about it, he said, "I had to get rid of that fag. He kept staring at me and wanting to touch my dick. So my rumor worked, but its results were as exciting as I'd hoped. But its results weren't as exciting as I'd hoped." Well, that's okay. No, there are so many things that just don't live up to expectations, but that's the way it goes. Hello. We're in the middle of editing a story about jail and close custody and what life is actually like in close custody. So, here we go. In my cell once more, boredom began creeping. Boredom began a creeping? No, let's change that up. In my cell once more, boredom began to creep up. Creep into my head. Boredom began to creep into my head. Boredom began to creep up is better. Stronger sentence, people. Short sentence is a stronger sentence. What I needed was to watch a good fight. Fighting in the pod where everyone could enjoy it was rare. But I thought maybe I could start one with the right emotionally unstable subjects. Insert story of Gaucho, Cowboy, and the Cumbugs. Gaucho, now there was an idea, and he's mad at the house mouses. Leprechaun was a house mouse. Now the wheels were turning. I called my favorite old black man over. "Hey, just so you know," that's a big mistake right there. "Hey, just so you know, you might want to cover up your video visits better." "What you mean, youngster?" "Well, I'm no snitch, you know. I know dat. But Leprechaun was staring kinda hard during your last visit." "That boy looking at my wife?" I gave a little shrug, trying not to smile. "Aw, hell no, boy." And he stormed off right to our favorite leprechaun. Leprechaun obviously isn't a real leprechaun. He's just called Leprechaun, right? Because that's the nickname. Everybody has nicknames in jail. Our main character's nickname, his real name is Altman, right? Hateful behavior. Submit appeal. Submit. I can't believe this. My goodness. My TikTok live stream was just taken off for hateful behavior. I'm not doing anything hateful. My goodness. Oh, well. TikTok, you're so stupid. I'm doing a short story, right? Like, come on. Oh, this is like way zoomed out. I should probably zoom this in. I should probably get in the habit of like checking this right before I start stream. In fact, I will. I will start checking this before I start stream because it looks a lot better right now, doesn't it? People were actually interacting. I was getting likes and stuff on TikTok. My TikTok live stream was taken off for hateful behavior. I haven't done anything hateful. I have done nothing hateful. Nothing. That's really annoying. Hmm. It's a real shame. Why does TikTok have to be so rude? Hateful behavior. We do not allow content that attacks, threatens, incites violence against, or otherwise dehumanizes an individual or a group on the basis of protected attributes, including but not limited to race, gender, sexual orientation, or religion. Uses or includes slurs, unless the terms are reappropriated, used self referentially, or do not disparage. Praises, promotes, glorifies, or supports any hateful ideology. I wasn't doing anything hateful. Come on, TikTok. Know what's going on. You can next go live as a host from 5/5 onward. I have to wait 7 days before I can go live again. Hmm. That's really annoying. Appeal submitted. All right. Well, we'll see.
If you just sit on his face, then you don't have to worry about him saying something stupid.
Rogers, thank you for helping out with the little kids today. Of course. I mean, how different can they really be from teenagers? Well, you'll see. Good luck. Hi, I'm dropping off my daughter Emily. Hi, Emily. My name is Miss Rogers. It's so nice to meet you. You look new, so just a heads up, if Emily acts up or breaks any rules, you're not allowed to reprimand her, discipline her, nothing. And if you do, I'll be very upset. If she breaks the rules? Why? Because it's not her fault. How would her making those choices not be her fault? She's not choosing. Sometimes her imaginary friend tells her to do bad things. Now we're working on her standing up for herself and saying no. Her imaginary friend tells her to do bad things? Exactly. We can't punish Emily for things that are out of her control. We make do. And if you do what you're supposed to, her friend won't tell her to bite you like the last teacher. Is this real life? Rogers, thank you.
Is this real life? I should probably make a TikTok or two, but let's wait just a little bit, shall we? We'll wait just a teeny tiny bit. Alright, let's get back to editing. What the hell are you doing staring at my girl? Leprechaun looks shocked. Excuse me? You heard me, youngster. You don't glance her way or I'll knock your teeth out. I'll fucking curb stomp your ass till the body stops twitching. 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 Twitch, 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 twitch. Twitch, 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 twitch. Writing. Live stream. This and future events. Yes. Okay. You heard me, youngster. Everyone in the pod quietly watch the exchange. Look, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not staring at anyone. Good. Keep your eyes to yourself. Not really sure how that's possible. Leprechaun gave an exasperated whatever as he walked away. Well, that was disappointing, but I wasn't ready to give up yet. The next day I called Leprechaun over. He explained his fear of getting an assault charge since Gaucho was such an old man. I gave a shrug. It's just so stupid, him telling everyone how badly you want his wife. I even heard him telling B and Jackson a few minutes ago. That old fucker's still spreading shit about me staring at his wife? Yep, I said, trying not to smile. Okay, and with that he went to confront Gaucho. Your old wrinkly ass still talking shit about me? Keep my name out of your fucking mouth. Who you calling wrinkly, youngster? You've got more wrinkles than my dad's ballsack. Gaucho had a cleaning bottle in his hand, looking like he was ready to spray it in Leprechaun's face. Come in my house and let's settle this, youngster. So you come in my house. Fuck dat. And just like that, it was over. Both walked away, neither willing to risk getting in major trouble. But that's how 90% of the disagreement yelling matches ended. With no one willing to actually throw a punch that would mean 30 days in the hole without books, commissary, or card games with friends. Leprechaun would also lose his house mouse job. Leprechaun would have also lost his house mouse job. Poor Leprechaun. Would have lost his house mouse job. Poor Leprechaun. Would have lost his house mouse job. Okay, so starting arguments was a short-lived fun. With only 8 people out at a time, my choices in fighters to instigate were limited. Looking out my window, I saw the CEOs doing their checks. One of them was a new kid in training. I'd seen him for about a week, and the other CEOs were having him call in the checks as of late. Looking out my window, I saw the CEOs doing their checks. One of them was a new kid in training. I'd seen him for about a week, and the other CEOs were having him call in the checks as of late. A check was basically counting the inmates to make sure everyone was where they were supposed to be. Counting the inmates to make sure everyone was where they were supposed to be. In a sudden stroke of genius, I ducked down in the corner where he couldn't see me. When he called in the inmate count, he was one off. His face fell as the training deputy told him, "You gotta get the count right, man." Anytime the kid was working, I'd hide. More often than not, the count was wrong, and he'd get yelled at. Apparently, no one ever told him to count the bunks. After a few weeks, I never saw him again. I started thinking of other ways to mess with the deputies. Mealtimes were my time to try and have a laugh at CO's expense. At the CO's expense. Mealtimes were my time to try and have a laugh at the CO's expense. It felt euphoric. I started when giving the trays back after the meal. I'd stand to the right of the door where the CO couldn't see me. My left hand would press the tray against the door. As soon as the deputy unlocked the slit in the door, I'd shove my tray out. Often the deputies, having not seen me, weren't ready for the tray. It made me smile to see them stumble to catch the tray. Watch. It made me smile to watch them stumble to catch the tray. Once in a blue moon, the tray crashed to the ground, sending little leftover bits of corn, peas, and potato flying. Watching a CO clean up the mess made my day. That is, until one day when the tray went spilling out onto McGruff's legs. Are you fucking kidding me? I still have no idea how I didn't end up in the hole. Everyone agreed the hole must have been super full. Must have been filled to the rafters. If I was left. Everyone agreed the hole must have been filled to the rafters for me to stay in the pod. After I switched to kosher meals, my food was delivered in a styrofoam container instead of a plastic tray, opening up a whole new world of possibilities. I started by hiding the plastic spoon where it was hard to see, but I got tired of them asking me where it was. My mind began turning when I saw the CEOs carrying the stack of 7. My mind began turning when I saw a CO carrying a stack of 7 special styrofoam meals down the stairs, stacked one on top of the other. My styrofoam sat second from the top. The next day, I piled all my apple cores, leftover bread, trash, anything with weight to the back corner of the styrofoam. To seal the deal, I added a bit of water. My heart soared when I saw my lopsided styrofoam unbalance the stack, sending the piled styrofoam containers crashing down the stairs. Food and spoons went everywhere. It was a beautiful sight. Eventually, the house mouses were tired of cleaning up the crashing messes, so I eased up on my destruction. I still added water to my container, though. Every so often, a CO would pick up the container sideways, sending water down their pants. If they asked about it, I replied that the rice was watery. Unfortunately, making a deputy look like they'd peed themselves, didn't take up much time. I had to find more distractions. Standing at my door bored, I came to realize watching people wasn't as much fun when it was the same faces every week, turning into the same faces every month. Sure, sometimes one meth head would be replaced by another. Or that mental handicap guy would be loosed back on society. Or that mental handicap guy would be loosed back on society. Only to have another take his place. Watching one was just like watching another. Every one of them needed to be told not to beg. Wait until the CEOs did their walkthroughs to ask for things, and for the love of God, take a shower. If everyone followed these 3 rules, they'd have a far better time in Max. We'd all have a far better time in close custody. I gotta use the restroom real quick. I'm still PO'd about this TikTok thing. They had better figure this out, because I'm reading stories and I'm editing stories. I'm not being discouraging or mean to any people. Yeah, we'll talk about this more, but I will be right back. You're late, but you're here. Oh my goodness. Sorry that was such a long break, but here is the reason it was such a long break. TikTok, in case you missed it, in case you weren't here, TikTok has just banned me for hateful behavior, hate speech. And I've submitted an appeal, but they don't let you write anything in the appeal, and I'm just looking up all this information. I hate it so much. Hateful behavior. I was suspended for hateful behavior on TikTok. During the live stream, I was live streaming this, and then I had the phone up here on the stand. I don't know if you guys can see there. See, there's the stand. And I was like, it was perfect because people could watch stream here and stream here. And I got a lot of people on TikTok. I had like 800 likes, and I had a lot of people on TikTok live watching me. Hateful behavior. I wasn't being hateful. It's a story. I'm editing a story. They should not hate me the way that they apparently do. I'm not happy. Not happy at all. But, oh well. Life goes on, I guess. Right? Life goes on. Let's plug the phone into charge and get back to it, I suppose. Oh my goodness. Late, but you're here. Well, I'm glad you're here. It's so much more fun when you've got people following you and watching you, and even if it's just 3 or 4 people, I love you all. You are all fantastic, and I love you, and I'm so glad you're here spending time with me. It makes me feel happy, and it's much more fun to work with people watching you, because I'm an attention whore, in case you didn't know that. Still at my window, I could hear a conversation next door where Autist was rattling off a bunch of numbers. It took me a moment to realize it was his PIN number. He was letting someone use it to listen to music on the tablet as payment for some food. I sprang from my position for paper and pencil. With Autist's... Why is it saying I'm doing that right? Nope, that's right. Autist PIN number in my hands. In my hand. I couldn't wait for my timeout. In the privacy of the tablet room, I logged into Autist's account. He'd been talking about how he had naked pictures on his images. He had naked pictures on the tablet. He had naked pictures in his tablet images that somehow got through. He'd been talking about how he had naked pictures in his tablet images that somehow got through. That was a lie. The only images I saw were of his family. His mom was hot. His mom was hot. Genetics say he shouldn't have been as ugly as he was. Next, I opened up his messages. In there I found Autist begging, groveling, and crying to his mom about his fear of prison. The best one was... This can't be happening to me. I can hardly survive in jail. Everyone is so big and mean to me. You have no idea what it's like. If I go to prison, I'm going to be raped and die. I'm not exaggerating. I'll literally be raped and killed. You gotta talk to the lawyers again. I'm in literal tears out of desperation. There has to be an amount we can pay to get out of this. What about a second mortgage? I'm only 19. I wasn't made for this. I want to go home. Mom, please. Find a way to get me home. I don't want to die. I don't want to have sex with a man. Please, Mom, save me. I reread it. He was honest to God, scared for his life, and feared for his anal virginity. Or he was emotionally manipulating his mom in a terrible way. We're all big and mean? No. He was an annoying little guy with bad habit. He was an annoying little kid. He was an annoying little kid with a bad habit for not paying his debts until he was screamed at. After a moment's deliberation, I knew what I had to do. I copied down his emotional turmoil word for word and began sharing it with the masses. Soon everyone was crying in Autist's face or shouting, "Mommy, Mommy, don't let the mean men anally rape me. I won't survive, Mommy, sell your house." Or, "Free me, Mommy, my virginity is at stake." All of which was a great source of laughter for everyone, besides Autist. Rumors and jokes at others' expenses were fine, but they hardly made up for the loss of one of my biggest pastimes. That should be one word. There we go. Masturbation. Making love to myself just didn't hold the same appeal as it used to. It's like the blonde beauty in my head was getting tired of me, or maybe I of her. In either case, I'd exhausted my current mental memories of lived eroticism. What I needed was to spice things up. What I needed was porn. What I needed was porn. First thing I did in my search for porn was ask my man Jackson where to go. Why don't you go pay 11 House to make you something? Make me something? Sure, he's a tattoo artist on the outside. He's good. Bag of chips or a candy bar and he'll draw you all kinds of naked women. He did a Harlequin pinup that was really good. Excuse me. I took a gander at his work. It was really good. Impressive beyond jailhouse measure. I could see why people bought his drawings. But I couldn't do it. Making love while staring at a black and white or cartoony drawing felt wrong. But I couldn't do it. Making love while staring at a black and white cartoon drawing felt wrong. No way I could be that kinky. What I needed to make love to myself, the way God intended, was an image of a real woman. What I needed to make love to myself, the way God intended. What I needed to make love to myself, the way God intended, was an image of a real woman. Take those paragraphs in, and lo, like manna falling from heaven, God provided in the form of safe for prison magazine. Magazines that left just enough to the imagination in the form of little black boxes, barely covering up the goods. Luckily, the black squares left barely covering up the goods. Magazines that left just enough to the imagination in the form of little black boxes that they were allowed into the facility. What? Bum, 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 bum. Oh, my goodness. I need to stop yawning so much. Man. It's getting a little chilly in here, though. Let's close the window. Close the window. Window. Oh, much better. Window is closed. Stretching out. It's important to take breaks when you're working. You guys having fun? You working on something good? Yeah? Good. I'm so glad. Let us continue, shall we? And lo, like manna falling from heaven, God provided in the form of safe for work prison magazines. Magazines that left just enough to the imagination in the form of little black boxes that they were allowed into the facility. Luckily, the black squares left little for me to imagine. Unluckily, most of the women were not my cup of tea. The girls were either change unlucky and unluckily to fortunate and unfortunately. Much more professional in that way. Fortunately, the black squares left little for me to imagine. Unfortunately, most of the women were not my cup of tea. The girls were either small little things with no body, or their tits and lips were huge, screaming plastic. Unmoving and unfeeling didn't do it for me. There was also an odd abundance of black women. Unfortunately, I suppose the magazine manufacturers knew their target audience well. Fortunately, after arduous searching, I found Trixie Dixie. She was exactly what I was looking for. A short blonde, cute face, decent ass, and tits to fit in your hands. CEOs have to leave the magazine alone. CEOs had to leave the magazine alone, but if they found any pages torn out, they threw them away. So buying a page for $1 didn't make sense to me, and I wasn't about to buy the entire magazine for $20. So instead, I let my one life. So instead, I let my one love-making night with Trixie Dixie's image just be one of those wonderful memories to look back on and enjoy for years to come. Or at least, I enjoyed it for the next few weeks. I thought about having my own Safe for Prison magazine brought in. Selling the pages for $1 a piece is a nice little moneymaker. Selling the pages for $1 a piece was a nice moneymaker. And after the CEOs throw the pages away, the pod's population needed to buy more. But asking a friend or family member to buy me a dirty mag was a low I wasn't ready to stoop to. Making love to oneself is a deeply personal matter. So I asked a buddy of mine to buy me a Safe for Prison porn magazine. Unfortunately, it never arrived. He ordered it, but unfortunately, so I asked a buddy of mine to buy me a Safe for Prison porn magazine. He ordered it, but unfortunately it never arrived. My theory is that a deputy, there we go, the deputy took it home for himself. My theory was the deputy took it home for himself. Toes, 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 toes. I could hear Gramps stirring below me. He'd fallen asleep while reading the paper. The paper. Let's talk. Are you just saying toes over and over again? I felt a flush of embarrassment. He wasn't supposed to have heard that. Well, yeah, kinda. Why? See, I just finished the Dean Koontz book. In it, there's a really smart little boy who counts his toes before he even knows numbers. Okay, so yeah, that's what I was doing. It was a kind of fun, cute part in the book. Okay, and with that, Gramps lifted the newspaper up once again. I looked down at the old man to make sure The newspaper had his attention before slowly turning my eyes back to my feet. Under my breath, I quietly whispered to myself, toes, 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 toes. Without a book to read and no more toes to count, the never-ending fluorescent lights started to get to me, but not as bad as it used to. Fluorescent lights started to get to me, but not as bad as they used to. Clearly, I'd become maximum hard. Maximum hard. I'd become maximum hard. Yeah. There we have it. Clearly, I'd become maximum hard. That got me thinking about what I could do, since I was looking for new things to do. That sentence isn't really needed. That got me thinking about what I could do to let people know how hard I was after I tasted sweet freedom again. Clearly, I needed to get an epic jail tattoo. First thing I needed was a needle. Making one was easy enough, but took a lot of work. First, I took a paperclip out of my legal paper. First, I took a paperclip out of my legal paperwork I had. First, I took a paperclip out of my legal paperwork. First, I took a paperclip out of some legal paperwork. I can also get... I could also get paper clips from paper pads bought off commissary, or from address books requested through the chaplain. Getting the paper clips sharp took hours of scraping against the metal edge under the desk and the concrete floor. Getting the paperclip sharp took hours of scraping against the metal edge under the desk and the concrete floor. The hours spent sharpening the metal were hours I had something to do, so I didn't complain. Making the ink was a bit more complicated. What I would typically do is twist up toilet paper tight and put What inmates would typically do is twist up toilet paper tight and put it in the middle of some pomade gel. They now had a homemade, or rather jail-made, candle. Lighting the wick, the toilet paper, I don't know. I kind of like the U. I'm going to keep with the U for now. You would light the wick, the toilet paper, by blowing a fuse or a battery. After the candle is lit, you put a paper bag over the candle to collect the soot. Add just a few dabs of water to the soot, and you've got yourself a decent jailhouse tattoo ink. Unfortunately, my facility was in the Stone Age. With no batteries or fuses available, we had no way to make fire. Others recommended using ink out of the pen, crushing up a colored pencil to a fine point, or even using pencil lead. The problem with every one of these methods is after a couple years, the ink fades from the skin fast. But that wasn't going to deter me. What did deter me was the pain of sticking and poking with only a semi-sharp needle. With no way to make a tattoo gun, I was left in the incapable hands of a man slowly lifting up the needle and bringing it down manually. It wasn't that I couldn't handle the pain, it's the dull needle slowly being pushed too far, or not far enough, into your skin really hurts. So it would take several more months and a Selly who knew what he was doing before I tried to get a jail tat. Smelly, stink, make you want to never eat apples again work. Smelly, stinky, make you never want to eat apples again work. Oh, talking about the fun of making some jail hooch. Jail wine, jail wine, jail wine, jail wine, jail wine. I tore a corner of the bed sheet. Slowly pouring the bags through the sheet into another bag. We were able to strain out all the leftover mush. Straining it involved a lot of savaretting and twisting the sheet. Savaretting? Straining it involved a lot of... What am I trying to say here? As we're making jailhouse wine, people. Straining it involved a lot of... squishing and twisting the sheet, leaving my hands sticky and smelling of sweet apple decay. Disposing of the mush ended up being way harder than expected. Just a few apple peels clogged the toilet. Not wanting to risk asking a deputy for the plunger and having them plunger and them sniffing the odor. Not wanting to risk asking a deputy for the plunger and having them sniff the pungent odor. I sat on the toilet, covering the opening with my legs. Bouncing up and down, I became a human plunger. This is a true story, by the way. Flushing and plunging for over an hour, my cellie and I were finally left with just the foul liquid. We distributed cups into small chip bags to give inmates who donated apples or sugars to the cause. In the end, we were left with 2 bags, about 15 cups each to get drunk off of ourselves. Every ounce tasted awful. The liquid was disgustingly sweet with a terrible alcohol bite for an aftertaste. I did my best to mask the flavor by adding over 30 punch juice packets. It kinda worked. But the important thing is, the wine worked. We got fucked up. I craved and ate a ton of bread, gave my silly crap life advice, and laughed a lot. The hardest part about being drunk was getting on or off the bunk. Was getting on and off the bunk. Holding on to the side of the bunk for support while my left foot searched for the stool proved to be quite difficult and time-consuming. I also enjoyed a lot of honey buns and Swiss rolls in my drunken eating frenzy. Towards the end, I slipped while trying to get off my bunk and landed hard, chipping a tooth. Towards the end, I slipped while trying to get off my bunk and landed hard, comma, chipping a tooth. Much stronger sentence. Good job, people. All in all, a great fun night in jail. It was hard not to giggle like little schoolgirls doing something wrong at a slumber party whenever the CEOs walked by for their hourly checks. When sleep finally came my way, when sleep finally came my way, it was the most relaxed and full sleep I ever got in Max. When sleep finally came my way, it was the most relaxed and full sleep I got in Max. Finally, sleeping on metal with 4 inches of padding didn't bother me. The wind came back with vengeance. The wind came back with a vengeance in the morning. I didn't throw up. That wind should be wine. That wine. But that didn't stop my stomach from asking me to. Stomach flipping and head pounding, I thanked God for Tylenol. And then Trevor told me he loved me before falling off the bunk and busting his tooth. No way. Swear to God. Then he went on about how great it was to date a girl who cuts hair. Saves a fortune, he says. Setter says, saves a fortune, he said. I told him he should try dating a homeless chick. It's great. When you're done with the date, you can drop her off anywhere you want. I laid back, enjoying hearing my drunk exploits. Max had a terrible, boring, and tear-enduring mundane moments. Nope, I was right the first time. Max had its terribly boring, and tear-inducing mundane moments. But there were things to do, stories to make, and people to help the time go by quicker. Not all of a person's time in Max had to be awful. A man just had to learn to entertain himself. Boredom is dangerous. We'll leave it with that ending for now, I think, for that chapter. A man just had to learn to entertain himself. Not all of a person's time in Max had to be awful. A man just had to learn to entertain himself. Okay. Chapter 8. Cell Block Gladiator. At 2:15 p.m., the CEOs do their hourly walkthrough. No. Did their hourly walkthrough. At 2:28 p.m., the TV was turned up loud to drown out other sounds. At 2:29 p.m., I stood in the window of the cell so I could see exactly what happened. I was also ready to warn the house's occupants if deputies suddenly entered the pod. The other inmates were going about their business as usual, so no one watching the cameras gets curious. So no one watching the cameras would get curious. They knew I'd give a detailed play-by-play, and crowding, should be crowding, not crowing. Crowing, it said. And crowding the cell door would look suspicious. At 2:30 p.m., I said, ding, ding. LeBron threw the first punch. His pale white cellie took it in the chest while he caught LeBron with a gun punch of his own. With an upward punch of his own. LeBron threw the first punch. His pale white cellie took it in the chest while he caught LeBron with an upward punch of his own. The white one flew a flurry of body shots. A left hook to the ribs, an uppercut to the solar plexus, and another left to the stomach left LeBron grunting. The white one threw a flurry of body shots. A left hook to the ribs, an uppercut to the solar plexus, and another left to the stomach, had LeBron grunting. That sounds better. Stronger sentence, people. Let's keep it up. Moving into his attacker, LeBron brought his left and right arms around White's neck, wrapping him in a guillotine hold. LeBron took a bit more abuse from the struggling White, but his guillotine held strong. Soon, White was turning purple, gasping for breath as his fingers searched for a hold on LeBron's forearm, trying to grasp a chance to gasp air. Let's turn that into all one sentence. Soon White was turning purple, gasping for breath as his fingers searched for a hold on LeBron's forearm, trying to grasp a chance to gasp some air. Several seconds of muscles straining against even leaner and meaner muscles passed with low grunts coming out as sporadic background noise. "You done?" LeBron asked. A renewed struggling spam hit for a moment. Spam should be spasm. A renewed struggling spasm hit for a moment. "You done?" LeBron reiterated. 2 slow seconds of silence passed before White Boy nodded and tapped LeBron's arm. With a sputtering gasp of air inhaled upon release, White Boy sat down on his bunk, rubbing his neck. And just like that, the fight was over. The TV was turned back to a normal volume, and I went to spread the legend of LeBron's victory to anyone who wanted to hear. This is the perfect example of a cell block gladiator fight done right. But fighters knew what was about to happen and agreed to it. Both fighters knew what was about to happen and agreed to it. No one ever got in trouble for fighting. With no major facial bruising, no COs even had a reason to expect a single punch was thrown. Keeping battle marks off the face is an important part of not going to the hole, although it can't always be avoided. Now that LeBron and his housemate had released their pent-up aggression, they went back to being civil cellies. When you're stuck in such a small, confined space with the same person for 22 hours a day, there are going to be things that annoy the hell out of you. Sometimes it's easier to feel and feels better to let a few punches fly in a respectful and agreed upon manner, instead of telling them not to put their fucking cup on your side of the goddamn desk for the millionth motherfucking time. Hang on. Cell Block Gladiator, a pandemic. Okay, so that is a mistake. It should be 21 hours a day. For 21 hours a day. A Mexican from Panama walked over to the tablet where his young white friend was sitting. "Hey, you got the commissary you owe me?" "Nope," White Boy replied flippantly without turning away from the tablet. "Nope, nope." And just like that, the little 140-pound Mexican from Panama threw his entire body into a punch, landing right behind the ear. Small as he was, White Boy still dropped like a load of bricks, falling off the stool with a bone-cracking thud. The sound of someone hitting the cement slab that was the jail floor is something I could never get used to. The sound of someone hitting the cement slab that was the jail floor is something I could never get used to. This one-hit wonder, taking place right in the middle of the pod, set a chorus of "Oh my gods" and "You killed him!" echoing in shouts from cell to cell. Excuse me. This one-hit wonder, taking place right in the middle of the pod, set a chorus of "Oh my gods" and "You killed him!" We'll put a comma right there. There we go. Much stronger sentence, people. Much stronger sentence. It didn't take long for COs to rush in, lock everyone down, and take both men to the hole. One for assaulting a fellow inmate, and the other for instigating him. That's right. Whether you're the puncher or the punchee, you're going to the hole. Sometimes emotion drives action. And action sends a message to everyone else in the pod. You pay Mexican back on time and are respected, or you get knocked the fuck out. You pay Mexican back on time and are respectful. Or you get knocked the fuck out. However, the message didn't matter in this case, because he never got back to the pod. He never came back to the pod. Although this is a great example of how the right punch in the right place can end a fight before it begins, regardless of size. Even the biggest and toughest detainees never do well in a fight against the deputies. "Put your hands out of the cell port," yelled the deputy. "Fuck off. Y'all can come in here and kiss my black ass." The three COs looked at each other. then looked at the skinny druggie causing all the ruckus. All right, and with a twist of the key, the cell door popped open. At that same moment, Blackie hit the floor and put his hands behind his back. He clearly realized how stupidly overmatched he was, and maybe he wanted to avoid additional assault charges. He clearly realized how stupidly overmatched he was, and maybe he wanted to avoid additional assault charges. In a moment, a knee was on his back, the cuffs were clicked in place, and he was dragged out of the pod. This is how 90% of all fronting with a CO goes. He'd later come back from the hole talking a big game about fighting back and getting thrown to the cell floor, but I had a perfect view of what actually happened. Most people in closed custody talk a big game and make themselves out to be real tough. Those same people lay down like lambs when pressed. CO stormed into the pod wearing black padded riot gear. They lined up at the cell door, shouting for the inmate to comply. Knowing what was about to happen, everyone housed in the pod began closing up their air vents with deodorant. After a moment, the COs began dousing the cell in pepper spray until its occupant eventually complied, laying on the ground with his hands behind his back. Deputies then burst into the cell, restrained him, and literally carried him out of the pod, not letting a single part of him touch the ground. One deputy to a limb. Yeah, we'll leave it like that for now. I may come back and change that later. But that's why we have multiple rounds of editing. Yay! Bum, 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 bum. Deputies then burst into the cell, restrained him, and literally carried him out of the pod, not letting a single part of him touch the ground. One deputy to a limb. Again, no one fares well against COs. His screams would later fill the pod as he struggled against the bonds of the quiet chair the CO strapped inmates in until they calmed down. The chair CO strapped inmates in until they calmed down. The chair was placed in the tablet room, but with his volume, he might have been right outside my cell door. I thanked God when he finally shut up. After several hours of screaming stereotypical profanities and pleas for help. Things like COs storming in wearing riot gear rarely happened. Even in Max, most inmates were there awaiting trial or doing a bit of time. They weren't They weren't looking to cause big trouble and wind up facing more time for attacking a deputy. Maybe one particular sergeant. There were a few deputies who feared getting hit. It was fun to walk up behind them and watch them freak out a bit with wide eyes and jumpy movements. It's like they think we fantasize about pushing them down the pod stairs, watching them fall down those 22 steps of concrete, breaking their asshole faces. Breaking their stupid asshole faces. Oh, I really like that. That's a really good. I don't know. That's just something that I love the little bits of like, hey, look, I'm saying these things, but clearly I'm talking about the other thing or meaning the other, alluding to, right? I'm alluding through the actions. I'm alluding to, this is the reality. This is how it actually is, right? Right. Oh, I love my work. I stood at my window watching as LeBron and a Mexican from Cali turned, arguing over the phone in LeBron's hand. Out of 2 phones in the pod, only one worked, so the argument was understandable. With a Viper's speed, Mexican struck LeBron with a haymaker. A few less significant punches were exchanged in your normal boxing match fashion before LeBron dove low, wrapping Mexican around the waist. With a twist of the hips, LeBron hurtled Mexican to the ground, standing on top. Finding themselves in a grappling match, landing on top. Finding themselves in a grappling match, Mexican grabbed LeBron in a headlock. At the same time, LeBron tried to get a few close quarters body punches in. Yeah, it's not a great sentence, but I'm going to leave it for now. Bum, 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 bum. Let's see if TikTok still banned me for hate speech. Which, by the way, I don't understand. How is it hate speech if it's literally a story? We've determined that your content didn't violate our community guidelines. Hey, I won the appeal, guys. Give it up. That's so cool. It wasn't hate speech. Me reading my short story wasn't hate speech. Go figure. All right, well now we can go live on TikTok. We will be live in both places at the same time. And so the whole point of TikTok here is to drive traffic to, you guessed it, the YouTube Live. And it's just kind of fun to be going to both places. So, all right, let's continue editing, shall we? Finding themselves in a grappling match, Mexican grabbed LeBron in a headlock. At the same time, LeBron tried to get a few close quarters punches in. After about 20 seconds of rolling around on the floor, Leprechaun came over. Hey, if you guys are done and you stand up right now, you're good. They both looked at each other, still wrapped in the other's arms. LeBron spoke first. You good? Yeah. And with that, they got up, slapped hands in a good sport, and went back. In a good sport fashion. In a good sportsmanship. They slapped hands in a good sportsmanship fashion and went back to their business. They fought right in the middle of the pod, but everyone kept their cool, no one shouted, and the COs didn't see anything. Deputies Deputies were probably too busy watching YouTube to notice the security cameras. Unfortunately, that first haymaker was a big hit, and within a day, LeBron's eye was swollen and colorful. But he and his celly were smart. LeBron never asked the CEOs for anything, never picked up or dropped off the food tray at meals. In general, he kept his distance. Let's turn those into 2 sentences. Those should be 2 sentences. LeBron never asked the CEOs for anything, never picked up or dropped off the food tray at meals. He never picked up or dropped off the food tray at meals. In general, he kept his distance and his face out of sight from the deputies, and it worked. In general, he kept his distance and his face out of sight from the deputies, and it worked. No one ever got in trouble for the full-on UFC match in the middle of the pod. Sometimes, getting away with something takes a little bit of luck. I knew B and his new cellie weren't getting along, but I was surprised by the full-on screaming I heard coming from their cell. New guy shouted, "You're gay?" B gave a shrug. "Yeah?" "You should have told me." "Why?" "Because I should know if I'm living with a..." Let's fix that real quick. I'm not going to say the word because we are live on both YouTube and TikTok, so let's just be nice and not say that word right now. Okay. Without any warning, comma, new guy grabbed B by the shirt and shoved him hard against the metal bar of the bunk. It looked back-breakingly painful. See what I did there? Without any warning, new guy. I'm just going to leave it new guy. New guy. Without flinching, like a homosexual Superman ignoring the pain, B put his celly in a standing rear naked choke, his left forearm digging into the threat's Adam's apple. Into new guy's Adam's apple. Is Adam's apple... Nah, I'll leave it for now. Quickly turning desperate for a breath and a dark shade of violet, Newbie's hands and fingers searched behind him until they found B's face. B let out a scream as fingernails dug into his cheek, leaving a trail of blood running down the length of his face. This wasn't a gladiator match. This wasn't a gladiator match. This was a real self-defense situation. Not sure what might happen if he... This was a real self-defense. Not sure what might happen if I lose situation. With this in mind, B looked to end the fight quick. Lots of little mistakes to fix. His right hand found the orange cup on the table. In one fluid motion, he drove the bottom corner of the hard plastic into Newbie's temple, laying him out on the ground. 2 heartbeats later, Newbie was sitting up staring at B. "Hey, I'm sorry, man." 2 more heartbeats before B responded, "Aight." And just like that, everything was fine. Everything except the large scratch marks on B's face. All it took was one glance at those catfight battle wounds, and they were both sent to the hole. B would return 10 days later and say it was like trying to strangle a wild badger. Like trying to strangle a wild badger. Most fights aren't as exciting as this one. Most end like Mayo's. Most end like Mayo's. Mayo was an annoying guy. It only took his cellie 3 days to understand just how annoying, and he attempted to deal with his annoyance by getting Mayo to press the button. When Mayo refused and his cellie tried to get physical, things took a predictable turn. Help! Help! Someone help me! Mayo's screaming could be heard through the whole pod. His cellie was equally loud. Shut up! No! Help! Someone get help! Save me! Be quiet! No! Help! 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 Soon the COs were running in and hauling them both away to the hole, while Mayo told the deputies, I yelled for help, just like I'm supposed to. There are detainees like the Soap Nazi, who are loud, obnoxious, and total outcasts from the rest of the pod. They make enemies with their racial slurs. They make enemies with their racial slurs, comma. Talk about their gang affiliations, comma. And draw swastikas all over the showers. They were Aryan Brotherhood. They were Aryan Brotherhood. And yet with all their enemies in the pod, no one was able to ever get to them. Thanks to being cellies with a scared weakling and being placed in that one group without a single enforcer in it, they ran amok without fear of physical retribution. These unfortunately sorry, water. Ran across your live on TT. Hope you're having a good time. I am. Thank you so much, SBS. I'm always having a good time on live. Having a good time and just enjoying the day, enjoying myself. Going live and having fun while I do it. So, these unfortunate set of circumstances gave rise to Cell Block Gladiator's most hated enemy. These unfortunate set of circumstances gave rise to the Cell Block Gladiator's most hated enemy. There are multiple gladiators, so we're going to do it right there. Rise to the Cell Block Gladiator's most hated enemy, the professional window warrior. Yelling through the pod all hours of the day and night, they are the scourge of the maximum security lockup. Scourge of maximum security lockup. Many window warriors came and went, but none came close to Borat. This Middle Eastern hellion, with his booming broken English, will live on in infamy. I demon! You're all Gowl! We never found out what Gowl meant. All of you are shit-eating pussy, none badass as me. I am your fathers! He would yell these insults off and on for hours. Yelling insults back at him got you more of the same insults at a higher volume. Some inmates took to kicking his door when he slept. Boom, boom. Wake up, you ugly ass face bearded Haji. I never understood this approach. Once awake, Borat would go right back to filling the pod with his foreign insults. Me ugly? You ugly! You mother was a goat, and I fuck goats. I sex you mother, goats all night long. Every so often, a CEO came to talk to him about it. Why you gotta yell at people like that, man? What have they done to you? I am their fathers! No, you're not. No, comma, you're not. Yes, I am their fathers! No, you aren't. Yes, they are my children! Needless to say, the CEO's warnings did little to stifle the crazy man's accented shouts. You're all bitches! Sons of whores, I am your lord, and I am the red one. You hearts are mine. Yah, yah. With no one willing or able to get physical with him in his group, I set my mind on ways to get even. Listening to him yell and scream in my cell, randomly disturbing my readiness, my reading and writing, and my sleep was maddening. Listening to him yell and scream in my cell, randomly disturbing my reading, comma, writing, comma, and my sleep was maddening. It's no wonder people go crazy in close custody. My revenge came in the form of the toothpaste bomb. Making a toothpaste bomb isn't complicated. Remove a third of the toothpaste so you have some room to work with. Pour a normal juice packet in the tube of the toothpaste. Fill the tube with hot water and twist the cap on, sealing the tube. Shake well, and you've started the chemical reaction that is the bomb's timer. Pressure will build up in the tube until it finally explodes, shooting toothpaste all over the cell. It's advised to wait until the pressure builds up to slide the tube of toothpaste under someone's door so they can have little time to react. You can also use specific juice packets to change the color of the toothpaste, staining the target's items. Thanks to my friendly neighborhood leprechaun, House Mouse, who pushed the toiletry cart around, I had access to all the toothpaste I wanted. All of it. 6 toothpaste bombs later, Bo Rat's cell was a very messy, sticky shade of grape juice purple. Becca, yeah, toothpaste bombs. They were insanely effective. 6 toothpaste bombs later, Bo Rat's cell was a very messy, sticky shade of grape juice purple. The pop of those exploding tubes was such a satisfying sound. It filled the pod like a well-tuned snare drum. So much fun. And everybody was asking, so how did you do it without getting caught? Well, there are lips, right? So you put the toothpaste on the ground and you just walk like you would usually. You just walk. And then as you're walking, you just kind of kick it under the door. And you walk on by, and then other people walk on by, and when they look at the cameras, you have multiple people walking by the same cell. There's no way to tell which one kicked the toothpaste bomb under the cell. It's not like we ever hold the bombs in our hands or anything. So, 6 toothpaste bombs later, Bo Rat's cell was very messy, sticky. I've already read this a couple times now. Our favorite CEO, Juanita, came to Bo Rat's aid during her walkthrough. So what happened? Exploding bombs, you fucking bitch. What did you call me? Her face was the color of San Francisco. Bitch, you get sex by dog. Dog humping on you all night. And in the blink of an eye, Bo Rat was gone forever. If a little police brutality took place after the pod door closed behind them, I wouldn't have shed a tear. Still wouldn't. Bombing someone was fun. I'd always enjoyed chemistry, but toothpaste bombs wasn't going to cut it for the next target. But toothpaste bombs wouldn't cut it for the next target. A motherless goat-humping thief. Thief started by borrowing from everyone, saying he'd pay them back when money was put on his books. 3 weeks passed, and no money was ever placed on his commissary. He always had a new excuse for his lack of funds. When no one would front him any more commissary, he took to stealing it from his cellie. Before his cellie could do anything about it, he PC'd out of the pod. My fellow detainees and I were seething. A few weeks later, Thief came back and was placed in the one safe group with no one to exact the pod's vengeance. Me, being me, I started brainstorming revenge. Everyone ignored him, yelled at him, cussed him out, and never let him sleep. I had the house next door to his bang on the vent with their cup, filling his cell with loud echoing bangs. But it wasn't enough. There was only one sensible thing to do. Shit bomb the fucking thief. Unfortunately, a shit bomb is big trouble if you get caught. You're going to the hole with no guarantee of coming back to the pod. Clearly, I couldn't risk doing it myself. I had to use a torpedo. A torpedo is someone who you can use to do what needs to get done. You don't really care what happens to them. A torpedo is someone who you can use to get what needs to get done, and you don't really care what happens to them. You aim them at the target and throw them away. Maybe it works, maybe not, but they almost always explode. Hence, torpedo. Most torpedoes Hence, torpedoes. Hence, torpedo. Most torpedoes are young, excitable guys who want to be a part of the in crowd. Most torpedoes are young, excitable guys who want to be a part of the in crowd and are eager to prove themselves. August was all of these things. August was my torpedo. After a little conversation and a few "you're awesome" Jolly Ranchers, August set to his disgusting task with more vigor than the happiest sanitation worker. While Thief was asleep, August filled a chip bag with his poop. He then peed in it and mixed the bag to get the right crappy liquid consistency. Placing the open chip bag half underneath the cell door, everything was in place for what was about to happen. I told him to be inconspicuous in walking past Thief's house. I told him to be inconspicuous while walking past Thief's house. I had several others walking past the cell to make it difficult for the deputies watching the camera footage to see exactly who the culprit was. But my torpedo's enthusiasm got the better of him. He full-on jumped. He jumped on that chip bag, launching shit all over the target cell. Thief asleep didn't wake up for almost half an hour. And when he did... Let's take that out. Stronger sentence, guys. Shorter sentences are stronger sentences. When he did wake up, he yelled and screamed for help, not wanting to get off his bunk and step his bare feet in someone else's feces. He was stuck on his bunk, yelling for guards for nearly 15 minutes while we laughed and laughed. That's a really long sentence. Not wanting to get off his bunk and step his bare feet in someone else's feces. He was stuck on the bunk, yelling for guards for nearly 15 minutes while we laughed and laughed. The CEOs brought Thief cleaning supplies to clean up his cell. Capitalize Thief, since we're talking about a person. Since we've turned Thief into a name, I should say. Thief is now a name. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, continuing to edit. Supplies to clean up his cell. Watching the look on his face while he mopped that shit up was all I'd hoped it would be. The ship bomb's blast was so far-reaching. The shit bomb's blast was so far-reaching that Thief needed new shoes and blanket. He also had to throw away his white t-shirt and most of his paperwork. It took the COs almost an hour to figure out who was responsible for the ship bomb. August was escorted to the hole, never to be seen again. He was a torpedo well used. Thief only lasted another week before he couldn't take the pod anymore. Not all victories involve physical retribution. Biowarfare is always an option. Not all victories involve physical retribution. So then, the dog latched onto my arm, and I'm screaming my head off, trying to get it off me. I slammed the dog into the wall just as I slammed the dog into the wall. Choking it with my free hand. And kneeing it as hard as I could. But the dog just kept snarling and biting. Once it got tired of biting my left arm, it started mauling my right. He held up his stitched and bandaged arms. Whoa, I was genuinely impressed. A lot of guys have epic war stories. Few have the scars to prove their stories are at least partially true. Yeah, man, they were hella bloody. I ended up cowering on the ground before the cops called the dog off. Then, just as the dog got its teeth out at me, they tased my ass. What? I said, believing this part of the story a little less. Yep, held the trigger down for a solid 10 seconds, even though I was already on the ground not moving. It hurt like hell, man. Believing every word of the story. Yep, held the trigger down for a solid 10 seconds, even though I was already on the ground not moving. It hurt like hell, man. Stop using the Lord's name in vain. The storyteller and I turned to see what all the commotion was about. At the card table, one of the players was standing pointing his finger in LeBron's face. I mean it. No more dropping these GDs. I held my breath, knowing what came next. LeBron gave his best smile before slowly enunciating, God damn. The punch came fast and landed on the chin. LeBron with a jab, cross that left a few marks. LeBron replied with a jab, cross that left a few marks on the chin. The two stood tall and exchanged punches until deputies rushed in and removed them from the pod. Everyone at the card table had smartly moved away from the fight. You never want to be close enough to the fight that COs might accidentally take you away to the hole too. An inmate could be stuck there for days while they take their sweet time figuring out what happened. Well, goddamn, I said. I guess no one ever told him to turn the other cheek. See what I did there? Yeah. He's a Christian, and yet the Christian got all mean and sassy and mad and just took it out on him. Oh, thank goodness for water. I really enjoy doing this, and talking it out and saying it out loud and reading it out loud really help with the throat, but after a while it does get to the point where it's a little little dry while I'm talking. Fights explode out of almost nowhere in Max. People are already stressed and under a lot of pressure. It doesn't take a lot to set some people off. To set someone off. It doesn't take a lot to set someone off. On the other hand, you have guys who are the ones who tend to get on people's nerves, yet they always avoid fights. By avoid, I mean they run away like pussies. Since everyone knows they're pussies, they get walked all over. FBI guy was always just crazy and loud enough to bring a little too much attention to himself. Eventually his cellie let him know he was no longer welcome in their house. FBI dealt with this by telling the CO he wasn't getting back in that cell. Go lock down. No. No? No. And like that, he went to the hole. When he came back, everyone treated him like a bitch. People would change the channel anytime he tried watching TV, kick him off the phone, and call him a pussy-ass bitch to his face. Anyone who says there's never a reason to fight is making jail. Anyone who says there's never reason to fight is making jail, comma. Anyone who says there's never a reason to fight is making life in jail a lot harder than it needs to be. Many times, fighting isn't even necessary. Simply standing up for yourself is adequate. Although I was surprised by how few people know how to fight. Once again, tension. Although I was surprised by how few people knew. Although I was surprised by how few people knew how to fight. A few fights developed into rolling around on the ground while playing who can hug the other one harder. But that's not their fault. While playing who could hug the other one harder. But that wasn't their fault. There we go. Much stronger sentence, people. Good job. But that wasn't their fault. Some had never had a reason to learn how to fight. Like my old Sully Max, I'll never forget the sight of him practicing throwing punches. Put those in quotation marks since he wasn't really throwing punches. Like my old Sully Max, I'll never forget the sight of him practicing throwing punches in our cell while telling me about these insane fighters who while telling me about this insane fighter who threw punches as hard as he could into brick walls, similar to our cell wall, to strengthen his knuckles. Yeah, insane was right. I started teaching him slowly. I slowly started to teach him the basics. Make a fist with your thumb on the outside. As you throw, rotate your shoulder, waist, and heels into the punch to give it power. Keep your free hand on your temple, protecting your face. Feet shoulder width apart. Left leg in front of the right. Now practice left, right, left, right. By the end of our time together, he was a regular karate kid. Both men stood tall, unblinking, like two cowboys preparing to draw. They stared each other down. The first moved with lightning speed, throwing a powerful jab cross combo. Powerful jab cross combo. The second fighter slipped the first's punch, but was unable to dodge the second punch, crushing his nose inward until it broke. The punch sent a stream of blood descending his face. Grimacing in pain, the second fighter stumbled back momentarily before recovering and bringing the fight back to his attacker. He lunged forward, plowing his elbow into the first's stomach, depriving him of oxygen. He followed it up with a powerful rotation into a hook, breaking at least 2 ribs. Stumbling back, the two stared at each other in something like admiration and hate. Stumbling back, the two stared at each other with something like admiration and hate. 3 heartbeats passed before they charged at each other with renewed passion. But it doesn't seem to ever happen like that in real life. The fights I talked about were the most interesting in my opinion. Cell block gladiator matches don't happen often. Cell block gladiator matches didn't happen often. I'd say we averaged about 2 fights a month. Few were exciting. Most involved 1 or 2 punches and it was over. Not by knockout, but by my victim not wanting to be hit again. Max is mostly boring, but when fights do break out, it's an exciting time. I was thankful for cell block gladiators like LeBron, helping keep things interesting. Oh my god. Let's do this. Stretch it out. Much better. Oh my goodness. Dun 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 dun. Okay, now I can talk. We're good now. Got some liquid going to the throat. Max is mostly boring, but when fights do break out, it's an exciting time. I was thankful for cell block gladiators like LeBron helping keep things interesting. At times, I wish my group had people for me to fight to spice things up. I was doomed to an external existence of one and done opponents and shadowboxing with myself. one and done opponents, and shadow boxing with myself. But that's closed custody. Cell Block Gladiators. That is a good chapter. It's kind of long though, I think. Word count. That's not too long. 4,146 words. So if we go to chapter 9, Pandemic, and do tools, word count, that one is 4,912 words. Okay, so we've got a pretty good average going. I need to use the restroom and refill my empty water bottle before I keep going, so I'm going to take a quick break, and I will be right back, everyone. Give me like 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops. 5 minutes. I'll be back in 5 minutes. I hope you guys enjoy this, the rotating song. I thought the rotating song was pretty good, actually. And I am back. Does anyone ever drink like a really gross drink because it's healthy? It actually tastes okay. It's mostly milk. Blueberries. That's the word. That's the word I'm looking for. It's milk, blueberries, and protein powder. But it's vanilla protein, so it's not terrible. But it's also, it is what it is. It's a shake. not the best thing in the world. But I'm not alone, right? Other people, you guys do that too sometimes, right? Just have something because it's super healthy. Yeah. I'm not alone. Good. I'm glad I'm not alone. Oh my goodness. So let's get going on this editing, shall we? Let's see if we can get at least another half hour in, maybe 40 minutes in. Because what are we doing? We are making memories. We're building something. We're making something that is going to be remembered, and people are going to look at and go, wow, that was actually really good, and I'm impressed with you. And I love you, and you have value and worth because of what you made. Because that's what it's all about, right? Doing something that gives you value and worth while you're doing it. That's the whole point, right? No? You're telling me that my entire worth isn't about what I'm editing and creating right now? Well, let me give it a try anyway. Chapter 9, a pandemic. Pandemic in jail. Changes everything. Changes the entire dynamic of what are inmates, what are deputies, and how they function. So, Altman, I turned in my sleep. 5 more minutes, mama. Let's change that to mommy. Altman, huh? I saw a CEO at the door. Pack your shit up. You're moving. Where? Wherever the fuck we say. Damn, why do CEOs have to be such assholes at times? Oddly enough, I didn't recognize this CEO. He wasn't new, but he wasn't typically working in this pod. I looked at my celly Gramps and said heartfelt goodbyes as I packed. He was the nicest murderer I'd ever met so far. And that's true. He was a murderer. Gramps killed his wife. Everybody knew it. He pretty much told me he did. Yeah, and so there we have it. My breath caught as I carried all my things out the door. Over a dozen COs moving more than half the pod's population at once. COs moving over a dozen COs moving more than half the pod's population at once. I looked at the clock. 6:30 a.m. I looked at the clock, 6:30 a.m. And they were moving us without any warning. This was big, but I had no idea what it meant. A few people passed around the local paper, and some of the older guys liked to watch the news instead of funny comedies or the quality movies that were also on. Hang on. A few people passed around the local paper, and some of the older guys liked to watch the news instead of funny comedies. Instead of the funny comedies on TV. So we'd heard about COVID, but it never became a big deal. Should COVID be all capital, or should it just be the C that's capitalized? I'm going to leave it for now, I suppose, just capital C. But it never became a big deal until they canceled haircuts in February of 2020. A month later, COVID would become the number one thing affecting our lives. March 2020, the state governor initiated a number of restrictions to help curb the spread of the virus. Among them was the suspension of all jury trials. My trial was supposed to happen at the beginning of May. It didn't, nor did it take place in June, July, or August. All those months, stuck in my cell, wishing for trial. I wasn't alone. All those months were spent stuck in my cell. All those months were spent stuck in my cell, wishing for trial. I wasn't alone. The pod was filled to capacity. Everyone was stuck until the courts opened back up. COVID news was on the tip of everyone's tongue. Good news, which there wasn't much of. Bad news, a lot of bad news. Good news, bad news, a lot of bad news. And anything a doctor or politician said spread faster than a viral virus. With everyone stuck in cells, waiting to hear that jury trials were resuming, depression was at an all-time high. People sat around, sad, murmuring about how they just wanted to get this all over with. Either go free or go to prison. Anything was better than the perpetual limbo we found ourselves stuck in. Every time they moved trials back set off a new wave of depression. Every time they moved trials back, set off a new wave of depression. It was hardest on people who'd been in Max for a long time. There were inmates who'd been detained for over a year, even 18 months, waiting for a chance to try and prove their innocence. Just when everything was finally done and the trial date was here, it was pulled out of reach, forcing them to remain in a confined cell for months on end. It's no wonder suicide was a constant conversation topic. Having been in Max since December, I was starting to feel the weight of my extended stay. I was always so hopeful and excited when my trial date got close. I learned not to get my hopes up. I'd slowly learn not to get my hopes up. The question on everyone's mind was, how can our state and county government suspend our constitutional right to a speedy trial? Not only suspend it, but continue suspending it indefinitely. The answer all of us continued receiving from our lawyers was, they can't, but they do. They can't, but they were. They can't, but they are. Regardless of the constitutional rights argument, the county judges simply noted all our objections and signed the motions to move our trials further and further into the ever-growing distant while we in Max rotted away. Distance. The county judges simply noted all our objections and signed the motions to move our trials further and further into the ever-growing distance, while we rotted away. Let's put a comma there. That's better. It wasn't like we didn't understand the dangers of COVID or the need to keep the public safe through social distancing. What we didn't understand was why there was no viable alternative to simply not having trials at all, especially since it appeared COVID was going to be around for a while. Having everyone wear masks and stay 6 feet apart seemed simple enough. Hell, make it 12 feet with medical plastic covering everybody. Covering everyone. If it was a spacing issue, rent out a large empty warehouse. Set up a bunch of folding chairs and tables. We're good to go. Worst comes to worst, I'd even have been fine. Worst comes to worst, I'd even have been fine holding trials virtually. I'd have even been fine holding trials virtually. Anything to get the wheel of justice turning again. I mean, this was unprecedented. If trials still took place during the height of civil and world wars, I think we could figure out a way to have them during COVID. Height of civil War, World Wars, and the Spanish flu, I think we could figure out a way to hold them during COVID. But no matter how many letters we wrote or complaints we made, the wheel did not budge. After a while, I'd even say it started to slide backwards. I walked in line down the hall with my fellow detainees. I struggled to carry all my things with my hands shackled to my waist. A deputy ended up having to carry my postcards from family in my chest. Postcards and chessboard. A deputy ended up having to carry my postcards and chessboard. We were ushered through a door one at a time as a CO marked us off. What was on the other side of that door was beyond any of my most recent dreams. I stood like a kid who just walked into Wonka's chocolate factory. A CO had to prod me to keep moving into the large open room. I was escorted to my bunk, one of 90 plus, all out in the open. To my left was a concrete rec yard, bigger than the one in Max, and it was a full workout tower. This meant real pull-ups and dips. Blah, 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 blah. Editing is fun. Drink some water, keep it lubed up. In the middle were metal picnic tables, enough for everyone. Above the tables were 2 TVs. People could watch different programs. No need to fight. On the other side of the table was a desk for the COs to watch us, and to the left of the desk along the wall was a microwave. To the right was a full bathroom with showers and sinks. Showers showers, sinks, and toilets. And around the toilets. And around the toilets were real stalls with real doors that closed. This was a big deal. A lot of new people who weren't from our pod were brought in too. Seems the guys who were left behind were those charged with murder. Seems the guys who were left behind were those charged with murder, and a few problem inmates who tended to get caught fighting. All in all, I felt excited and a little overwhelmed. 9 months living in a small cell, and now I was in the biggest open space I'd been in since my arrest. Other than being outside once in a chain gang during transport to the courthouse. A lieutenant stood up and spoke, while deputies passed out masks to everyone and placed red tape all over the room. Gentlemen, due to COVID and the need for spacing, you're going to be in this dorm. There are certain privileges with being in a dorm. Don't fuck it up, or these privileges will be taken away. You all have been given a mask. Anytime you're not on your bunk, you're to wear your mask properly on your face. When standing in line for meals or meds, you will stand on the tape to ensure 6-foot social distancing. No more than 6 people in the rec yard at a time. No more than 6 people will be in the rec yard at a time. No more than 3 at a table when laying at your bunk. No more than 3 at a table. When laying at your bunk, your head will face the bunk numbers. You guys are being given a chance. You can handle this. You guys are being given a chance to show you can handle this amount of freedom. If you like it, follow these rules or you will lose it. Not everyone could handle the freedom. Not everyone could handle freedom. We were all given orange rubber spoons to keep and use at our leisure. A big step up from only having a spoon at meals. Within an hour, someone was taken to the hole for starting Let's edit that. Within an hour, someone was taken to the hole for carving their spoon into a shank. But for the most part, no one wanted to risk going back to being stuck in a cell. All beefs were immediately squashed. There wasn't even a hint of any fighting. No alcohol was fermented. No drugs were sold, no meds were cheeked, and no major infractions took place. None of it was worth the risk. Even food wasn't saved from meals. In the blink of a moment, we became the ideal inmates. Only thing anyone got reminded of was to keep 6 feet apart. And don't forget to wear a mask. It was weird to see people who I'd known and interacted with through a door for months out in the open. COVID be damned. Leprechaun and I fist bumped. It was like all it was like all was finally meeting a it was like I was finally meeting a pen pal after writing each other multiple times a day every day. I think the Mexicans were the happiest with the change. Suddenly, they had access to fellow Spanish speakers they could sit and converse with. Soon, they were playing games and had a ton of inside jokes. They called HIV burro, which means donkey. They called HIV burro, which I was told meant donkey, because he chewed like one when you gave him food. Watching him eat, Burro was an apt name. Burro was in fact the only person who didn't seem to have a group he hung out with. Can we make hung out one word? Nope, can't make hung out one word. How dare we try to make hung out one word? We should know better. It just looks better that way. I don't know. Dang. It just looks better that way. Burro was in fact the only person who didn't seem to have a group he hung out with. But he was still a happy donkey. He took to grabbing everyone's coffee wrappers out of the garbage and adding a little water to wash the leftover coffee powder into a cup. After 20 or so wrappers, he almost had a cup of coffee. He was rightfully teased for this crazy homeless man scavenging. Some things never changed. Some things never change. Shedding off the orange uniform for blue was like seeing the sun again. Not being stuck in a small cell for 21 hours a day was so liberating. The day was whatever I made of it, and completely claustrophobic free. If I wanted to talk to someone, I was free to do so. My family and friends could call in the video visit. My family and friends could call in to video visit with me anytime without planning, without having to plan around work and life schedules to fit my time out. My family and friends could call in to video visit with me anytime without having to schedule days in advance to ensure we got a time slot that worked around work and life schedules to fit my time out. I was able to call my lawyer at a time I knew he'd be in his office. Instead, You ever do anything and you're just like, wow, that is really itchy, and then you just have to scratch, scratch, scratch? Yeah, that's what I just did. That's what I just went through. Instead of only having 2 out of 4 days where the timing was practical, I spent most of my time playing spades for commissary. With my new partner Leprechaun, I spent most of my time playing spades for commissary. With my new partner Leprechaun, we practically always won. Together, we were never afraid to gamble as much as we could convince our opponents to agree to. Together, we were never afraid to gamble as much as we could convince our opponents to agree to. At the end of every day, we would feast. But my fun wasn't confined to cards anymore. In the dorms, we weren't lacking in games. Behind the CO's desk, we could check out all sorts of games. Risk, Life, Sorry, Monopoly, Cribbage, Chinese checkers, chess, even tic-tac-toe. And I played every one of them. Even tic-tac-toe. And I played all of them. Gambling on Connect 4 games was a favorite quick moneymaker. Chess was a close second. The bathrooms were wonderful. Being able to go and take a shit whenever I wanted without having to announce it to a celly. Courtesy flushing the entire time. Putting up a privacy sign or worrying about a deputy watching me with my pants down was amazing. I closed the stall door and did my business at my leisure. Taking that first dump made me feel like a real human being again. The showers became my new thinking place. There were 8 of them, and I tried them all. The 4th was the hottest, while the 3rd lasted the longest at a whopping 28 Mississippis. The 7th had a tough time draining, leaving the standing water that smelled funny. I warned everyone away from that shower stall. Without the confines of 4 houses out, I felt the freedom of showering when I wanted without the need to rush. I showered twice that first day, basking for nearly an hour under the limitless stream of hot water. Cleanliness is next to godliness. Being in blue, commissary was no longer restricted to us. A lot of guys enjoyed music on their bunks with the new radios they purchased. Made me think of how nice it would have been to have music while stuck in a cell. I thought about how nice it would have been to have had music while stuck in my cell. Myself, I enjoyed being able to buy top ramen noodles and soda. After 9 months without carbonation, popping open and enjoying my first root beer was breathtaking. In a week, I'd have every type of pop available. In a week, I'd had every type of soda available and savored every bubbling drop. But the real game changer when it came to food was the microwave. Every meal became but every f- but the real game changer when it came to food, comma, was the microwave. Every meal became a jailhouse delicacy. Butter and cheese made for great grilled cheese sandwiches. By great, I mean great for jail. Wouldn't feed anyone in the real world. Wouldn't feed it to anyone in the real world. There we go. The microwave. Excuse me. The microwave also gave us nearly boiling water. Suddenly, coffee and cocoa could be enjoyed at burn your mouth temperatures. A vast improvement from the lukewarm. Sink water we were stuck with in Max. Although the best thing about the microwave was fixing the kitchen's mistakes. Your roll arrived hard? No problem. Food was delivered cold? Fixed in a jiffy. The realization that jail didn't have to be totally terrible and all that I'd been missing because a stupid jail system stuck me in maximum really pissed me off. To cool down, I called my family when I knew they'd get off work and took another shower because I could. Because I could. We are on page 8 of 20, continuing our effort in our works of editing. Gaucho and his black boys kept one of the TVs on the news and a few old person game shows. They had a bad habit of turning the volume up way too loud, but we kept them in check. Me and my gang kept the other TV on whatever the best movie on was. But with so many things to do, I found myself hardly watching my movies. Instead, I made my way to the rec yard. I figured the pull-up bar was a great opportunity to regain some of the muscle I'd clearly lost while laying in my cell. A few friends were talking while walking laps. The added size of the concrete yard made me wish for a basketball hoop. As I started doing pull-ups, we talked about how many jailhouse poets and wannabe rappers there were. The average was about 1 in 6, and all of them were terrible. Suddenly Jackson started busting out some rhymes. I'm the booty hole troll, thick bread I fold. They call me King Colon Crusher, 'cause I crush the booty hole of your mother. An older man we all called Ass Crack because his pants were always falling down. Continually fell down. An older man we all called Ass Crack because his pants continually fell down, joined us in the rec yard. As our laughter died down, I felt inclined to renew it. So I was friends with this older guy, about Gramps' age. One day, he said to me, "Well, Sonny, I think my wife died." I asked him, "What do you mean you think?" He said, "Well, the sex is still the same, but the dishes are piling up." As the laughter died, I gave up on my third set of pull-ups. I was clearly out of shape. Ass Crack took the opportunity to chime in. "You know what's great about 29-year-olds? A breath of silence passed while we awaited the punchline. "You have 20 of them." The unexpected dark nature of the joke got a few woes and short laughs. we go. But due to the nature of his charges, the joke fell flat. We all decided the joke was in poor taste and the ass crack wouldn't be sitting at our table anytime soon. Tasteful humor is an art form. That's just a fact. Well, guys, it's after 5. I am going to call it. Thank you so much, YouTube. TikTok, you're great too, but YouTube Live, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for commenting. Check me out on Patreon if you'd like to take a look at some of the short stories, if you haven't already, or if you want to support the continued writing career. Chapter 9 is coming along really well. I'm really impressed with it. I think that we've done a great job of work here. And as always, I really appreciate your criticisms and your constructive thoughts and how we can make this book better. I really think this is coming along well, and I'm impressed. So we're sitting right now at 74,000 words. And this is the third draft, and this is the first all the way through edit. So editing chapter 9 is going really well. Once we're done with this edit, just like I do with all the other chapters, I'll send it off to the editors, and then they will take a look at it, and we will get something more concrete going. So thank you all so much, and have a fantastic rest of your day. As always, enjoy what you read, love what you write.